Welcome to But Are There Dragons, a podcast where two friends pick a book at least one of them has not read and work their way through it a few chapters at a time.
I'm your host, Kritter.
And I'm your host, Jess.
And we're continuing this adventure with The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien, with me as the resident Lord of the Rings veteran.
And me as a Lord of the Rings first-timer.
In this, our 6th episode of Season 4, we're going to discuss Book 6, Chapters 3 through 5. But before we dive in, what's new with you, Jessica? How are you feeling?
I'm good. I can't believe that August is here, and this summer, this whole year, honestly, has flown by. So I'm good. I'm ready for time to just ease up just a little bit, but not the read. I'm all in on the read. How about you?
Can't say I agree that I want time to slow down a little. I've been pregnant this whole year pretty much, and so that is coming to an end sort of soon, but it would be things are getting more and more uncomfortable, so I think I would just let time pass at a normal rate, and then we'll have the little guy here and it'll be great, so I don't have to be gigantic and hot for longer than I need to be, basically. So
sure.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. But yeah, it is nice. The read, it feels like we're so close. It feels weird. We're getting really, really close to being done with the trilogy.
Yeah, tonight's read is specifically like a big deal.
Yeah, like a big deal.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
All right, Book 6, Chapter 3, Mount Doom.
I wonder what that could be.
Do you think this is the most intimidating chapter heading yet?
Yes. So I think that folks who listen to us or watch us are probably aware by now that I don't look ahead. I don't even look at chapter names. But this is only the second time in 4 books that I've looked and seen the chapter title and went, I know what we're doing. The only other time being Riddles in the Dark, way back in The Hobbit.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw this chapter heading, when we finished last week's read, I was like, oh my God, it's here.
We're here. Yeah, I mean, we've been traveling around Mordor, so, gotta get there some point.
Yeah.
And here we are. So Sam has a bit of an epiphany at the beginning of this chapter that there really is no going back. He is going to die. But from that, somehow he strengthens, turning into some creature of stone and steel that neither despair, nor weariness, nor endless barren miles could subdue. How are you feeling at this point? About Sam, about all of it?
I actually quoted it because I thought it was umami. Never for long had hope died in his staunch heart, and always until now he had taken some thought for their return. But the bitter truth came home to him at last. At best, their provisions would take them to their goal, and when the task was done, there they would come to an end, alone, houseless, foodless, in the midst of terrible desert. There could be no return. So I thought that it was very poetic. Secondly, alone, houseless, and foodless is a very Hobbit way to describe a very dire set of circumstances.
So true.
And just very much points out, like you said, that it really drilled it home for him. And then immediately, almost in the same breath, well, if that is the job, then I must do it. The indomitable spirit of a Hobbit.
Yep.
I love it.
You gotta respect it. You have to respect it. So the hobbits, they slowly and painfully make their way to the mountain, eventually shedding their disguises after Frodo gets to the point that he can't go on, but refuses to let Sam carry the ring for him. Frodo describes his state as naked in the dark, with no veil between him and the wheel of fire. So do you think Tolkien succeeded at making this sound like the worst hike in the history of ever?
I mean, he didn't help hiking's cause in any way. That's for sure. I thought that I do think that their trek is incredible. I think that the shedding of layers of clothes is also very symbolic, right? Like they are stripping down to bare bones, and it alludes to Sam being sad. The hardest thing for him to leave behind was his cookware,
I
just.
know.
But I think that it's incredibly symbolic of all the things you leave behind when you have a single-minded purpose, and this is what it takes to cross this finish line. It's incredible. It's just incredible, and the visualization for Frodo of just seeing the Ring of Fire. This is at least the second time. This is the first of several times throughout this particular block of reading where it talks about how Frodo can't remember good things. He's lost memories of things that are tangible and real and positive from their background, whether it's Sam going, "Oh, do you remember the wine spring, or do you remember this, or do you remember that?" And he's like, "I remember nothing. It is just the ring." And it's heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching for Frodo.
So I was wondering if you remember this part from the movies, right? And I'll give you the visual that actually is paralleled really well from the books to the movies, where Frodo's like batting away invisible things in front of him as he's walking, right? Clutching the ring. If you remember this part from the movies when they're approaching Mount Doom, how do you think it compares to the book?
I think that it's terrific, because I think that it's two very different mediums, but it evokes the same sense of he's in a different reality almost, or the writing definitely indicates that there is a veil between those two worlds, and that veil is essentially gone for Frodo, and so he is reacting to stimuli that are not necessarily in this world.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like when I was reading some of this, as I said, like him like batting away nothing, like them shedding their clothes, like it felt very almost like beat for beat. Granted, their time in Mordor in total definitely feels longer in the books, which, of course they have to shorten things. And I went to the Lord of the Rings the musical. I forgot to mention this, but anyways, I went to Lord of the Rings the musical, and they shortened it even more. You know what I mean? Because you're doing 3 books in a play, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So obviously the movies had more time. Yeah, the movies had more time to work with, but still, the books. I feel like if the books do anything that the movies don't do when it comes to the time in Mordor, it's just hammering home how terrible it is there. And how brutal and how long the journey had to go still, even once they got into Mordor, right? 40 miles at one point. And that was after they had already traveled a ways.
So far, and had already been through so much.
Yeah. So it's I think they depicted it very well, but I think the books made it even worse. In the way they made it seem even worse, which, makes sense. So on the last day of the journey, Frodo is at the true end of his strength, but Sam steps up. "I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you, and it as well." I literally just kind of cheered it up a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely cried when I read it. This last half of the book, I'm going to cry a lot.
Yeah.
That's what I know.
So he carries Frodo, finding the burden far lighter than he could have imagined. So how are we feeling about the sequence? Where do you think Sam's strength came from, or was Frodo truly that light?
I think it's both. I think that everything is burned away, right? I think that the physical toll that it took on him to make this trek, the physical toll of carrying the ring, and just the shedding of everything, right? They have been going through this, and for months and months on end, to one extent or another. But this most recent stretch is several weeks of unending.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Misery.
So, yeah, my words are failing me a little bit. So I think that he is, as gaunt as you can imagine a hobbit to be and still be a hobbit.
Yeah.
And that also the reading indicates that the lembas bread, when you eat only the lembas bread, it makes you stronger of sinew, and when you don't dilute it with other food. So, they had gotten through the last of, Sam had foraged the last of the provisions that had been with the things taken from Faramir, from their trek with Faramir. And they still had some lembas bread provisions, and so they have moved on to just lembas, and the lembas is kind of fortifying him in that way.
So once again, the elves coming in clutch.
Yes.
Wow.
But when he said, it was, I'm paraphrasing terribly, it was scary how easy it was for him to carry him. I was like, oh God.
I know.
So bad.
I loved how Sam carried Frodo just like a really great distance. And when Frodo thanks him and asks him how much farther, Sam's like, I have no idea. Like, where are we going? I don't know. Like, why are you asking me this? He's just literally in it, no thoughts, just vibes. And I love him for that. I don't know.
But I love that it's an honest answer,
Yeah.
So if it doesn't happen on the page, it didn't happen, right? So
yeah.
Neither Sam nor Frodo really kind of know their actual destination. So for you to ask him, well, nobody's plugged it into GPS yet. We don't actually know.
We're doing our best out here. We're just moseying.
Literally just doing our best, you guys. There was another thing that happened right before that, though, which kind of stuck out to me. Samwise has a little debate with himself about how things are going and everything. And I got some Gollum vibes from it. And I know that that's not a real...
Oh, yeah. Okay. I know what you're talking about now, but keep going.
So he's like, he could not sleep and held a debate with himself. Well, come now, we've done better than you hoped. Began well anyway. I reckon we crossed half that distance. And it continues on. And I was like... I feel like this very innocuous conversation is indicative of the toll that this is taking on Sam. Okay. A lot of attention is drawn to how terrible this is as a whole and how negatively it's impacting Frodo. And we're all focused on the fact that Sam is carrying Frodo's weight and helping him achieve this goal. And all of that is true, but also like there is an emotional toll to this for Samwise as well that we just don't really ever talk about.
Yeah. He's not really got any conversation companions anymore. Frodo's lost and it's just him. So why not have a conversation with himself, a la Gollum and Smeagol? Yeah, bless his heart. So Frodo is increasingly burdened, like just terrible, but is eventually knocked from Sam's grip by you know who. Gollum has returned. As Gollum and Frodo are locked in battle, Sam perceives them as something not entirely themselves. Gollum a crouching, ruined, defeated shadow, Frodo a figure robed in white, holding at its breast a wheel of fire, and out of the wheel comes a commanding voice. Begone and trouble me no more. If you touch me ever again, you shall be cast yourself into the fire of doom. Where do you think that came from?
I have no idea, but I highlighted the whole thing.
That was wild.
I was like, whoa!
Like, is Sauron, like, speaking through Frodo here? It was not giving Frodo. I don't know.
It definitely wasn't giving Frodo. I didn't go to Sauron. I did... so my Wheel of Time is showing, and I was like, is this a callback to a previous reincarnation of this incarnation of this fight in previous ages? But
that is very Wheel of Time.
It's very Wheel of Time, and I'm like, I'm in the wrong IP, but still, that's how it felt for me. I had no idea what to make of this. And it's all brand new information to me. So I just, like I said, I highlighted the crap out of all of it. And I went, what does that mean?
Literally, like, what, maybe it's not Sauron, maybe it's just the ring. Like, maybe it's, because the ring's getting real wily here at the end in Mordor. Or is it Frodo defending the one thing that he is?
Oh my God, is it the ring?
Right? I just thought of that just now.
Be gone and trouble me no more. If you touch me ever again, you shall be cast yourself into the fire of doom.
Yeah. What is the ring? Was it the ring? That's my new theory. Because it's not giving Frodo.
It's not. I'm like,
Frodo
I don't understand being
energy.
robed in white.
Yeah. But the flaming, circle, this flaming wheel. I don't know. I guess if you're listening, like, let us know. Where did this come from? Is this
Let
Frodo?
us know, but spoiler bar the crap out of that. Because I don't want to know until I'm ready to know.
Well, fair enough. Okay. Yeah. So anyways, theories, thoughts.
We love theories.
We do love theories. So Frodo continues up the mountain and Sam faces Gollum, sword in hand. But now, after everything, when Sam has every reason to end Gollum once and for all, he takes pity on him and lets him go. How do you feel about this decision?
I'm so proud of Sam. His mind was hot with wrath and the memory of evil. Like I thought of this whole time, the constant grudge against Gollum, granted, not unwarranted, right? Like, but every negative comment, distasteful look, all of that was like a bank account that was just accumulating. Like all of that negativity is just building.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, he stays his hand. He finds empathy in the last moment.
I agree. Like, it hurt me, because I've been not Team Gollum. That, like, it made me think, like, would I have done the same? Unclear. But good for Sam. Very proud of Sam, especially because we have heard Frodo say it, Gandalf say it. He may yet have a part to play, right? And so I don't know to what level Sam was thinking that. Probably not at all. I think Sam just finally related to Gollum just enough, having carried the ring for just long enough.
Fraction, yes.
That he understood to some extent what Gollum had gone through. And that was enough for him to take pity on him, which I just love Sam so much. I don't, like, he is like everything I wish I was, and like everyone was, he should be aspired to. Everybody should want to be like Sam.
And I choose to believe that he got there on his own, right? Because Frodo and Gandalf, both directly and indirectly, had made the case for empathy and staying your hand and provide, being merciful towards Gollum. And he seemed very unmoved every time that conversation came up. So I choose to believe that in this moment, he got there on his own, which is twice the reward.
Yeah. Sam wise, for real. He got there. We love him for it. So Sam then followed Frodo and found him at the end of a tunnel boring into the mountain and at the edge of the chasm at the brink of doom. But there Frodo announced in a clear voice that he was not going to do his appointed task, and he put on the ring. In that moment, Gollum returned, knocking Sam out, and Sauron realized his folly, recognizing his deadly peril and the thread upon which his doom now hung. How is this for a climax?
This is amazing. So I think that it was incredibly well represented on the screen. Don't get me wrong. But reading it, and I was like, I could see in my head all of the ring race going.
Yeah.
And again, this read has shown me that, all of that misdirection and diversion was, a part and parcel for the plan. And, but also the backstory of not understanding that. I think that Gandalf explained it to us at one point. Never in the world would it have occurred to Sauron to destroy the ring because it's too valuable to destroy in his estimation. So he never would have occurred to him to destroy the ring. So all of those pieces lumped together make this reveal that much more awesome. Like in that moment, he is really completely taken unawares, and it is awesome.
Yeah, we outsmarted you, buddy. So there.
Yeah.
But it's not over yet. Gollum and Frodo grapple, and Gollum manages to bite the ring from Frodo's finger. In his elation, though, he stumbles off the edge into the chasm, and all hell breaks loose. So we did not get a hero overcoming the corruption of the ring in the end. Instead, the ring goes down after a series of unfortunate events and a happy accident. How do you feel about that?
The Gollum stan wants to feel good about it, that he inadvertently, with his last act, did something incredibly kind to the world.
Okay. Can something accidental be kind? Kind to me implies intent.
Okay, so not kind, but beneficial?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Sure. I'll take the distinction. In that I do kind of go back to our Smaug conversation about how it wasn't the hero winning the day. It was a whole nother set of circumstances that actually won the day. So I feel parallels there. So I think it's incredible that the ring made it in, knowing all of the things that were working against that moment. But it's definitely not the typical, hero saves the day in the traditional sense that somebody might expect.
Not traditional. We didn't not get a hero, right?
We still have a hero. We still have many heroes.
Many heroes. And in this case, I think the heroes are closer in proximity to the ultimate victory than in The Hobbit.
Yes.
Because in The Hobbit, we meet somebody and then it's like, oh, that's the guy who's actually going to save and kill the bad guy. Right? This was definitely more like, okay, Sam and Frodo teed this up, but also so did Gandalf and Aragorn, and like everybody had to do their part in this to make it happen. So we got heroes, but it was just that very last part for me where it's like Frodo refused. He did the same thing that Isildur did, essentially, but Gollum was there to thwart him, essentially, and that's why we finally got the ring destroyed. Just
and his
wild.
Last wail of Precious, and then he's gone. I was just like, well played, Tolkien. Well played.
In my notes, I just say, the Nazgul just dissolve, LOL. They're like on their way, and then, the mountain starts exploding, like the towers start crumbling, whatever. And then they just describe the Nazgul as like kind of just dissolving. So nice. Get out of here. So then Sam carries Frodo from the cavern and immediately laments the hand that Gollum had made. He seems so fixated on this hand. Frodo notes that the quest is achieved, all is over, and he's happy to have Sam there with him at the end of all things. And that's where the chapter ends. Any thoughts before we move on?
Just there was one other quote right before that. Well, this is the end, Sam Gamgee, and there was Frodo, pale and worn, and yet himself again. In his eyes there was peace now, neither strain of will nor madness nor any fear. His burden was taken away. There was the dear master of the sweet days in the Shire, and I loved that.
The relief, having a burden lifted. Yeah, it was beautiful. It felt good, even though They think they're gonna die. They think it's the end.
But at the end, he gets to be himself.
Right, which is perfect.
Which is definitely something.
Yeah. Okay, book 6, chapter 4, The Field of Cormallen. So we are back with Aragorn and Gandalf. We're hopping around a little bit, POV time.
Yeah.
As the Eagles arrive, so you remember that point in time?
Yep.
Pippin's buried under a
troll, dude.
Eagles are arriving. The Nazgul flee, being called to another task, so we can assume...
Sighting.
Yeah. Oh, sighting. True. Another one, even though they've already dissolved, but we're back in time, so whatever.
Yes.
So as Sauron's attention turns to Frodo in the mountain, his armies lose their drive, and then when the ring is destroyed, the armies flee. This is how I believe Tolkien described Sauron's presence in this moment. Tell me if you took it another way. Black against the pall of cloud, there rose a huge shape of shadow, impenetrable, lightning-crowned, filling all the sky. Enormous, it reared above the world and stretched out towards them a vast, threatening hand. Terrible, but impotent, for even as it leaned over them, a great wind took it, and it was all blown away and passed. So was that Sauron for you?
It was. I hope that's right.
That's what I thought. I mean,
that's what I took that.
It wasn't explicit, but to me, I'm like, yeah, that I can see that. That's kind of awesome.
Nothing in the read indicates that Sauron had a form, right? Like everything was him acting through others, and he has a mouth and he has the ring.
And an eye.
Yes, an eye.
Some kind. A metaphorical eye, perhaps, in the books, whereas it's more physical in the movies.
So yeah, no, I totally took this as Sauron.
Okay. Pretty epic. I love that it leans out, a vast threatening hand, terrible,
and then
but impotent, and then just
blows away.
Love it. Bye. Bye. So Gandalf immediately asks Gwaihir and his eagle friends to bear him on a task, right? Gandalf is focused, and Gwaihir's happy to oblige. As Frodo and Sam are convinced their time is up, and Sam wishes he could hear the tales that would be told about Nine-Fingered Frodo and the Ring of Doom, Gwaihir appears on the horizon and sweeps down with his fellow eagles to bear them away. So Gandalf finally gets to catch up with Frodo and Sam, like we suspected he wanted to do when Faramir told him he'd seen him, at least I suspected. Satisfying resolution, or would it have been better for the story if Sam and Frodo had made the ultimate sacrifice?
No, I'm never going to vote for that.
Okay.
No.
Fair.
I'm way too attached to my hobbits. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Just no. Yeah. I think they gave up enough. I really do. As much as I do understand that trope and why some writers really prefer it, they gave up enough.
Yeah, I'm a happy endings girly person.
Yes.
Like, I want, you hear Sam thinking about Rosie Cotton and the Shire. You hear Frodo talking about, like, all of his, Bilbo and everything. You don't want that to just be done, like, be gone.
Well, and even Gandalf and Gwaihir rescuing them. Two small dark figures forlorn, hand in hand upon a little hill. Like,
yeah.
Yes, I want them to be saved.
Save them.
Yes, save them. Dear God.
I agree. I completely agree. I just know some people are like, oh yeah, well, what's the point if no one dies? Boromir died. That's all we need. Sorry, Denethor died.
There you go.
Honestly, who cares? But
like
Theoden died.
Theoden did die.
So that was a good one. People died. It was that enough people died. Okay, so Sam wakes up in a bed in Ithilien. This is another place that I had to be like, what? Where? Gandalf at his side, to his amazement, because remember, they still thought Gandalf was dead. Frodo also nearby, teasing him for sleeping in. So I'm not gonna lie, I was really defensive for Sam at this point. Like, that boy deserved a rest. Okay, so how do you feel about this reunion with Gandalf?
So this felt like the flip of what happened when they went to Rivendell, right? So it was Frodo abed, and Samwise has been loyally by his side. I don't know if you can hear it. We've got some excellent thunder happening outside.
I heard, I just faintly, I heard something. Yeah.
So I think that it's a great flip of that now it is Frodo waiting attentively for Sam to awaken. So yes, I do think that it's fun loving and that he totally deserves rest. But I think that that's what that was about. So this whole scene definitely gave me vibes of the waking up in Rivendell scene and the Bilbo goodbye tour in The Hobbit, honestly. So there was a lot of that going on for me in the last half of this read.
Okay. Yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah.
So Frodo and Sam are led to meet with the king. And it turns out a bit of a ceremony was prepared for them. They are praised with great praise, even by Aragorn, who kneels before them and places them on the throne. A bard also sings them a tale of Frodo of the Nine Fingers and the Ring of Doom, and Sam weeps with happiness having gotten everything he wanted. Any highlights from this celebration?
I still can't get over the fact that Aragorn is a healer. So they reference that Aragorn is the king healed you and now awaits for you. The other thing, there were two other, again, really throwaway comments. One a little bit more somber. Aragorn's talking and he says, "It is a long way, is it not, from Bree, where you did not like the look of me, and a long way for us all, but yours has been the darkest road."
Yeah.
And then Sam, they are brought back their raiment, and his elven cloak was all healed of the soils and hurt that it had suffered. So, like, it means nothing, right? Their cloaks mean nothing. Just the way that it was worded, I thought was awesome.
Well, and I mean, the first statement that you said didn't mean nothing, right? The acknowledgement that they went through more than anybody.
And they had the darkest path.
They had the darkest path. Like, yeah, everybody had a rough time, obviously. But Frodo and Sam, the fact that these two little hobbits are getting mad props from the most powerful, politically at least, man in Middle-earth, good. They deserved it. They earned it. So as you said, Sam and Frodo are clothed in their more proper clothes. Frodo taking Sting back at Sam's insistence, and they head to a feast where they're reunited with Merry and Pippin. At one point, we find out because Gimli makes sure everyone knows that he was the one to find Pippin buried under the enemy on the battlefield. Do you find Gimli to be a little overly boastful, or is the way he is just about right?
I mean, he probably is, right? But I just attributed it to his dwarvish nature.
He's a proud dwarf. I kind of have the same thing, yeah.
I'm like, porque no lo dos, right? Like, both things can be true.
He's boastful, but he's a dwarf, so it's fine. It's funny.
Just honestly. like they were more materialistic. Again, when you make generalizations, it can rub people the wrong way. But I think that also Gimli is beyond what I would consider a standard issue dwarf, right? Like Gimli is a war hero in his own right and has seen some stuff.
And who respects elves, right? Yes. So his horizons have been broadened. He just still has some of those little dwarfy tendencies, and dwarves are just going to dwarf. Every time he does, it makes me laugh. It's like, never forget, I was the one that found you. I'll never forget what a hobbit foot looks like. Just like he's so funny.
And such a random thing to find, you just like picked him out of a pile. I mean, of course you did.
Sure you did. So Legolas also keeps talking about the sea, which makes me sad. But I'm also kind of happy for him, I guess. I don't know. I'm torn about that. We'll see where that goes. He's just very wistful at this point. And then the armies eventually head back to Minas Tirith via ship. And that's the end of the chapter. Thoughts before we move on?
I did like the fact that Mary and I are busy. We are knights of the city and of the mark, as I hope you observe. I thought that was just a little bit of snark. I liked it. And then there was just this little brief snippet of all of them getting a chance to sit and just swap stories. And that vibe was exactly right. Finally have the remaining members of the fellowship together and able to talk about what their how they got to where they are. And it, it's just a paragraph, but I loved it because I loved the mental image that it gave me.
Yeah, it's nice. Reunited and it feels so good, basically. Okay.
And they were talking about the city of Men of Gondor, last memory of the Westerness that had passed through the darkness and fire to a new day.
We're getting hope. It's giving hope.
It's giving hope, and I dig it.
Same. So book 6, chapter 5, The Steward and the King. So we go back in time again to just after Aragorn and his host left for the Black Gate, and were met with Lady Éowyn, chafing against the walls of the Houses of Healing. She learns that Faramir is the new steward by rights and seeks him out, hoping he'll release her. How did you feel about this initial conversation between Éowyn and Faramir?
So I'm going to say that it's really, really hard for me to go on the record with an anti-female sentiment, but I don't like Éowyn much in this chapter.
Already, like right out of the gate?
Out of the gate. This started off on the wrong foot with me. So I do understand that, she is a shield maiden, she's a warrior at heart, and she feels, and that's not, the sentiments that she's expressing are not gender specific, right? Any warrior that goes into battle and thinks they're going to die is then faced with the trauma afterwards of, now I've lived, now what, right? Like, that's not, I don't begrudge her that, but everything about the way that this was framed, I guess, just rubbed me the wrong way. I cannot lie in sloth, idle, and caged. And I just was like, it's not lazy to be resting or healing.
Yeah,
like I have not died and battle still goes on. And I'm like, I wouldn't like this even if it were a male character saying it. So she's entitled to those feelings. I just, for whatever reason, I started off on a really wrong foot. And then I would have you command this warden and bid him let me go, she said. But though her words were still proud, her heart faltered. And for the first time, she doubted herself. She guessed this tall man, both stern and gentle, might think her merely wayward, like a child that has not the firmness of mind to go on with a dull task to the end. And when I read that, I'm like, but you are.
This is what you're doing.
Being wayward, and you have just gained some self-awareness.
Embrace it.
And awareness is a very important first step. So, because then that devolves in, that's her speech to Faramir when she's asking, and I do love the fact that she says, it's not for want of care. The Houses of Healing are taking excellent care of me, but it's because of this. And so when he counsels her that, our lot is essentially patience and the front line could find us very soon, she devolves into, well, but my room doesn't face eastward.
Oh. So was that a little childish also for you, or were you like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, no, you didn't like that?
So again, we have so few female characters that I don't, and maybe I'm just having a rough day, right? Like maybe Éowyn is just not my jam in this moment because I loved her heart and fervor on the field. But outside of combat, I seem to have taken issue with her a little bit.
Just a little whiny this time.
Yeah, and I, just like our other heroes, she has been through something incredibly traumatic and has all of this to go with. But I'm like, why is your behavior for some reason really grating on me? I'm sure it says more about me than it does about Éowyn.
Éowyn and Faramir have the same situation, and Faramir is handling it much better. So I think that's fair to be like, you need to get it together. I think it is funny, though, because like 2 episodes ago, you kind of predicted this, right? Because when Aragorn was like, what was it? Mary can take a walk. Like, Mary can do basically whatever he wants. But Éowyn and Faramir, they need to stay in the House of Healing for 10 days. And you said, if I recall, something along the lines of, because they might not. Because they might decide they need to go get out and do stupid stuff.
Right. Whereas
too
Mary
soon.
is smart enough to stay put.
Right. And so now here Éowyn is like, I want to follow the company that's going to the Black Gate. like days after. Yeah, no, girlfriend, what are you doing?
So the flip side of that, to soften that criticism, is that I do very much like Faramir in this section, and I do like the effect through this chapter that Faramir has on Éowyn, that he softens her and offers her a different perspective that she will actually listen to, because as we know, Aragorn and Theoden, maybe not Theoden, but definitely Aragorn, tried to offer her a different perspective, and she was not willing to receive that message. Whereas this time with Faramir does seem to connect with her a little bit more.
Yeah. So I thought in their first conversation, it was really funny because he like very respectfully drops some major hints that he's into her. And they literally, in this first conversation, fly over her head. She does not respond in the way that you would like, I'm being hit on, so I'm going to respond. No, she just doesn't even notice. But then eventually, as you said, like time passes, Éowyn and Faramir grow closer, walking the garden together, waiting for news, until finally one day they observe what we know to be the destruction of Sauron. And they receive the good tidings. Faramir takes on his stewardship role to prepare for the coming of the king, and Éowyn falls back into apparent despair. Finally, Faramir confronts her and asks whether she loves him. Her response is complicated. This though is the most blatant romance plot we've gotten in these books. How is it working for you, or how did it work for you?
Once Faramir broached the topic, I was in. I'm into it because I feel like he is using his high level of perception to call it out. He's saying the quiet parts out loud, right? He's like, you wanted somebody else to love you. He has gone to battle. Your love is unreciprocated, but I tell you plainly that, I love you.
Yeah.
And she volleys back with, I don't want anybody's pity. So I'm like, it still grates a little bit. I'm sorry.
No, honestly, her reaction, like, she's like, I did want him to love me, but now I don't want anybody's pity. And it's like, girlfriend, that's not what he's saying.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but like, he's a catch, dude.
Yeah. Oh my God. Jump on this opportunity. What are you doing?
The heart wants what the heart wants, but Aragorn was very clearly not reciprocating. And Faramir, and these moments, I was glad that they were saying the quiet parts out loud. I guess I don't want to talk in circles, but I thought that it was good. When he tells me that he's doing romance, I see it. I think that before it was just a little too subtle for me.
And I like Faramir, man. I love this guy. He knows that Éowyn was in love with somebody else, right? He knows that she's kind of a tough nut to crack here. And he gives her this speech, even when she's like, I don't want to be pitied by anyone. He gives her this speech that's like, I don't pity you at all. Like, I think that you're incredible. And basically, with his wise, incredible, loving words, he warms her heart and heals it. And she becomes better, right? She changes her ways. She knows what she wants. Like, it worked for me. I don't know. It's like, especially because I don't chalk up her like childishness or whatever to her being a woman. I would like to attribute it to how much she was going through, right? She had witnessed Theoden die. She was definitely under the, what do they call it? The black sickness or whatever.
The black shadow.
Yeah, something like that. Like she of all people was the most burdened by it, right? Because she was the one who dealt the final blow. Her sword was there. Like, she did it all. So she has every right to be traumatized and not in a good place. And that's kind of why I gave her a little bit of a pass. And the fact that Faramir brought her out of it just felt really romantic to me.
That means that love heals all. Faramir healed her.
I'm
fine with that.
And it makes him kind of kingly, right? Because the hands of the king are the hands of the healer. I don't know. So, okay. Aragorn and his company finally arrive, and Faramir announces him with many, many titles. I'm going to say them momentarily, and I will ask, which do you think are the coolest or stand out the most to you? Okay.
Okay.
Aragorn, son of Arathorn, chieftain of the Dunedain of Arnor, captain of the host of the West, bearer of the Star of the North, wielder of the sword reforged, victorious in battle, whose hands bring healing, the Elfstone, Elisar of the line of Valandil, Isildur's son, Elendil's son of Numenor. That last part is all kind of clustered. Basically, it's just his lineage.
Bearer of the Star of the North.
Okay, so that one caught your attention. Do
Yes.
you don't, we don't know what that is.
No.
That's why I caught your attention.
Yeah.
Okay, I looked it up.
Funny you should ask.
I looked it up because I was like, wait, that didn't happen in this book, right?
Sure did.
It didn't? No, did you look it up?
No.
Okay, just checking.
No. I'm going to finish this series strong, man.
Good. Okay, so we've got a mysterious title.
Yes.
Do you want to know?
The ones I was able to work out.
Do you want to know where you can find the answer to what that is?
Well, so Star of the North is hyperlinked, so I bet I could go to my thing and find out.
Oh, I just mean like the book.
Oh.
Like,
is it
no.
in Silmarillion?
It's not.
Is it in this book?
No.
Biscuit.
It's in the Book of Lost Tales. I know. It might be in the Silmarillion, but whenever I looked it up, it was like, this is something that we find out in the Book of Lost Tales.
Okay, well, since that's not a book we've agreed to read, yes, please. I would love to know the story on the Star of the North.
So it's let's see. I'm gonna do my best here. It's basically Elendil's. It's like this. Hold on. I'm just gonna look it up because I don't want to get it wrong. Star of the North.
The overwhelming urge to click on the hyperlink now and see where it takes me, but I'm not gonna.
You gotta be careful. Elendilmere was the name of the Star of Elendil, or the Star of the North Kingdom, a great gemstone that seemed to burn with an inner light, mounted on a slender chain of mithril. It became a token of royalty throughout the Kingdom of Arnor, having been the first crafted and presented to the High King of Gondor of Arnor, Elendil the Tall. I won't say. We find out in the Unfinished Tales, not the Book of Lost Tales. We find out in Unfinished Tales that Aragorn found the Elendilmere in the Tower of Orthanc. So after Sauron's defeat, Aragorn, with the help of Gimli, finds a hidden door and a steel cabinet in which they discover a small golden tube without any inscription, containing the original Elendilmere. So
that's wild.
I know. So he only wears it on special occasions. And yeah. So I'm so glad that you pointed that out.
Wait. When does he go on that quest?
Whenever they're... It's a good question.
Sauron just got defeated.
You're right.
So how can he already have that title?
Wow. How can he have that? So Aragorn finds the original Elendilmere in the Tower of Orthanc. After Sauron's defeat, he goes to Orthanc.
Now I need a map because now I'm like, how far away is Orthanc? This is time past, right? They waited till May to go into the city.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter.
They go to Orthanc. Well, never mind.
It's okay.
Maybe. See, the thing in the book, though, is he is described as wearing a gem on his forehead. And so, to me, I thought that's the Elendil. That's what we're talking about.
Elendilmere.
The Elendil, but maybe it's not. Maybe they just are calling him that because that's like a title that they give, kings from the line of Elendil, and then he eventually goes and recovers it. But I swear, in this book, they did describe him as wearing a gem on his forehead. So now I'm like,
okay,
do we have a continuity issue? I know we have some major I'm sure that's not true. I know we have some major Lord of the Rings people, like, in our Discord.
It's an 80-plus-year-old story. Like, it's okay.
But I want to know.
I know. Now I want to know all the things. But I got to finish this story first.
You're right. Sorry.
I worry about any other stories.
If any of you people know what's going on here, the bearer of the Star of the North, when did he get it? When did he go to Orthanc? How did he find it? Let us know. Okay.
I'm like, do we phone a friend? Do we reach out to our fun Lord of the Rings friends who are better at obscure stuff like Dawn or Mary?
Yeah, maybe I'll make a TikTok about this. Just be like, explain this.
And invite,
what's happening.
Yeah. Maybe that German Tolkien guy could tell us.
Yeah, somebody's going to tell us. The mystery will be solved.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure I could probably like do the research, but who wants to do that? No, I'm kidding. I might do the research after this. All right. So when it came time for Aragorn to put the crown on that Faramir had recovered for him, he asked that Frodo be its bearer and that Gandalf be the one to crown him, because he was the mover of all that was accomplished, and it was his victory. First of all, yes, agreed. But did this make you feel any type of way?
I thought it was exactly right. Very political, but very prudent. He did not get to this point alone. So he did not. I thought that it was incredibly smart. I don't think that any of them would have faulted him for doing it another way, but it speaks to his character that he wanted to do this in a way that highlighted those that had helped all of them get to this point.
Yeah, he is a level-headed guy. Like, he's fair. He is a just dude, in my opinion. Speaking of, Aragorn gave Faramir Ithilien to be his princedom and passed judgment with respect to Baragon's crime, assigning him to Faramir's guard. How are you feeling so far about Aragorn the King? I feel like we kind of just touched on that.
I dig it. I absolutely dig it. I think that it is just right. Right, like he can't stay in Minas Tirith because of the things that happened, but he found a way to honor the intent of the law without punishing Baragon for ultimately doing the right thing.
Yeah. And can I just say, and this will apply for like many things that we find out here later in this chapter and future chapters, but Tolkien, he loves tying up loose ends. He's a loose end king. Like, never ever did any, like, end and let people guess what happens next. Couldn't be Tolkien. There's no such ending on, like, for the fun, the end of a story. There's no guessing. He's not going to leave you wondering about anybody so far. That's what it seems like. So, though the people of Rohan departed to get their affairs in order, Aragorn asked the Fellowship to stay in Minas Tirith a while. Frodo starts to get a little antsy, but Gandalf reminds him that it had been less than a year since he'd set out from the Shire. It feels wild to me that all of that happened in less than a year, but also not wild because Tolkien kept filling us in on the timeline, as we talked about. How did that little knowledge bomb, less than a year, hit you?
I had the same thing where I was like, what? Can't be. But also,
I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. He did tell us along the way, but that's why I had that moment just earlier in this episode where I was like, it's really only been a few weeks on this particular part of the trek. And I'm like, a lot has happened in this book. A lot has happened across the trilogy.
Less than a year. Absolutely crazy. So then Gandalf kind of like takes Aragorn off into the wild, and he has a heart-to-heart with him, letting him know that the third age had passed and the fourth age would be an age of men. He lets him know that along with the elder kindred, he would also be departing, for he was the enemy of Sauron, capital E, and his work was finished. He also points out to Aragorn that in that hidden place was a sapling from the line of the eldest of trees, the same kind of tree that had withered in the courtyard of Minas Tirith. Any thoughts about this convo?
I thought it was wild that Gandalf's entire destiny was tied to his opposition of Sauron. So it was complete news to me that he was done in the world because Sauron was done in the world. So that was a big piece of knowledge to kind of wrap myself around. And of course, there's a magic tree. And of course, there's one just hanging out in the back 40.
Yeah. Why would there not be?
Yeah.
I mean, the other one's dead, so
yeah,
he's got to have a king tree.
But, Aragorn is nothing if not a child of prophecy. So it feels accurate that, once he comes into his own and reclaims his kingdom, that the tree would present itself to him.
Yeah, I agree. I will say that I'm going to briefly, very, very briefly talk about Rings of Power. So when I read this part, this enemy of Sauron with a capital E, I thought that it lent itself to the stranger being Gandalf, because we still don't know who he is. Season 2 hasn't started, and I've heard maybe he's a blue wizard, because we don't know anything about the blue wizards, and they went off into the wild and whatever. But this, to me, because the Rings of Power is so focused on Sauron and his rise, right? It just felt very much like, okay, well, if there's an enemy of Sauron, you would think that he would kind of at least be somewhat involved in Sauron's beginning, right?
Sure.
And so that's part of me is like, okay, well, I've always thought it was Gandalf.
You've always thought it was Gandalf. Yeah,
I always have. And so, of course, it's like a self-fulfilling, like, oh, I'm so right.
But also, if the stories, if the source material links the two inextricably, there's a lot to be said for that.
Why would it not be? Why would it not be? That's what I'm saying. So anyways, official prediction, slightly backed up by the text. Pretty excited about it. Okay, so we end the chapter. A host of elves, including Galadriel, Celeborn, Glorfindel, Elrond, and Arwen, show up. It was the day Aragorn had been waiting for. Aragorn and Arwen married on Midsummer's Day. Thoughts on this last part of the chapter, generally, before we pick an MVP?
Did anybody ask Arwen if she wanted to get married?
What? I mean, she came. What do you mean? I guess, yeah, we don't know anything about her.
So, again, Arwen hasn't even spoken on the page.
She wrote a note.
She
or
did.
Wait, did she write a note, or did she pass a message?
Banner. Yeah, she passed a message with the banner that she stitched for him.
That's the most talking that she's done.
I'm like,
she doesn't actually talk. Yeah.
And I'm like, did Elrond just bring her and hand her over? Like, as was wont to do in certain societies. So yeah, I want to be super excited about this. I have yet to know if Arwen even likes Aragorn.
Okay.
Sorry.
I hadn't even thought about I made him a cool banner.
I know, but like I'm so enamored with the Arwen Aragorn love story, how it was portrayed in the movies. Yeah. And I have gotten none of that.
Yeah.
So I hope that theirs is a love that transcends time. I just would like to see it a little bit before it's over.
Yeah, the musical did better with it too. They played up the romance more. Also, she spoke. She had some good songs even.
Great. So, not to end on a cranky note, but I was like,
hey, that's okay.
I hope she consented. That's all.
We can only assume. Or hope. Hope and assume. Okay. So, we've got a tradition where we pick an MVP from the chapters we've read for each episode. Cue the music. Jessica, who would you name as your MVP this episode?
So I'm going to say once again, Sam. This time, though, most notably for his act of empathy and compassion for Gollum, which not only saved himself, but saved Frodo. Because without it, Frodo would have gone all the way to the dark side, and it would have been heartbreaking and awful. So he saved himself and his very dear friend Frodo, and ultimately saved the whole world.
Yep.
Because Gollum's actions are what made the ring finally be addressed. So it's Sam for me all the way.
1,000 times yes, I agree with you. 100,000%. Not only that, which is huge, him overcoming his hatred for Gollum and finding mercy in his heart. Wild, incredible statement, like testament to his just amazingness. He also, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. I love that part so much. He literally carries the world on his back in these chapters. And so, not just letting Gollum go free and then having that be ultimately the reason that the ring goes into the fire, but like, the ring wouldn't have been near the fire if Sam hadn't taken Frodo and just done what needed to be done, right? That epiphany. I'm not coming back from this, but it doesn't matter. I've got to do this. This is my task. Like, I love Sam so much.
And all of the other undying love things too, you know, that I can't carry it, but I can carry you. All of those things go without saying. But, you know, for like proof on the page, like these are my reasons.
Like, sure, Aragorn, very just king. Faramir, lovable, like romantic, incredible. Gandalf, wise. You know, everybody has several people have some really solid chapters, but Sam has the chapter, and that's. So if you, those of you out there, if you want to weigh in on who you think the MVP is, because we only had one like primary Sam and Frodo chapter here out of the 3, so it really could be. I mean. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Did save the whole world.
It did. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you all picked Gollum though, because I can't trust you.
I thought about it, but ultimately it was Sam's choice.
It was, because without Sam, Gollum would be. Well, technically, Sam would have been the one killing Gollum, but without Sam's choice, Gollum could have been dead, and so that wouldn't have happened, right? It was all Sam. Sam was the one. But if you pick Gollum, more power to you, I guess. I'm curious. I'm very curious. Comments on YouTube or in Discord, let us know who your MVP is this episode. Okay. So, we would ask that for next week you read Book 6, chapters 6 through 7. And I'll say thank you so much for tuning into our 6th episode of Season 4 of But Are There Dragons, brought to you by your hosts, Jessica Sedai and me, Kritter XD. Don't forget to follow us at But Are There Dragons on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and But Dragons Pod, just one T, on X. You can also find your hosts on social media as Kritter XD and Shelf Indulgence. That is it for today. As always, we're workshopping new catchphrases for Season 4, so let us know on social media how you feel about this one. We're glad that you're here with us, dear listeners, here at the end of all things. Bye!